Hi, my name is Gabby Millett, and I decided to choose Booker T. Washington as my educational giant. Now, just a little summary of Booker T. Washington is that Booker T. Washington died in 1915. He had influenced those that knew him. He wrote books, taught children and adults. He started the Tuskegee Institute for an opportunity for the African Americans. He tried to move the education and economies forward for the African American people without upsetting the whites. He taught the African Americans to accept some of the segregation and policies that were in place if they worked on their own education with hard work and discipline. Booker T. Washington was an American educator, author, orator, and advisor to presidents of the United States. Now, here's a little history of who Booker T. Washington grew up to be. Booker T. Washington was born into slavery on a Virginia farm in 1856. He was 9 years old when the Civil War ended. After the emancipation, his family moved to Malden, West Virginia. The poverty was so great at the time that work would be more important than schooling. At the age of 9, Booker started working in a salt furnace and then later a coal mine. At the age of 10, he started working for this family, which taught Booker to be frugal, clean, humble, and personal morality. Booker was very determined to get an education. He enrolled at what is now called Hampton University in 1872. He worked as a janitor to help pay for his education. After graduating from Hampton, he returned to his small town of Malden and taught school. He taught for 2 years, children during the day and adults in the evening. Following his studies at Wayland Seminary, he was hired on as a staff member at Hampton. Working at Hampton is what influenced Booker to pursue education contributions that he made to education. Some of Booker T. Washington's major contributions was the establishment of the Tuskegee Institute of Education for African Americans. Booker T. Washington released there was a deteriorating of the agriculture in the area, which was an important means of support for this area. Booker was working on this problem and realized that the farmers were going to need assistance to bring this area back to the state that it needs. To quote one of the sources I found, the quote goes, "To address this need, he developed 2 forms of education that exist and thrive today. These 2 concepts are adult and extension education. In serving the adults of the area, Washington developed programs that address the needs of the local farmer, increasing the production of food and fiber. He procured a wagon, outfitted it with tools and information, and delivered information to farmers at their home locations. Through this system of extending on-campus programs to adults, he extended the Tuskegee idea and helped make the farmers self-sufficient and productive contributors to society." Close quote. Booker also worked with Du Bois to assist the African Americans to develop the skills that they would need to have a lasting legacy and contributions to the nation alongside the white people. The impact Booker T. Washington had on teaching. To quote Booker T. Washington himself, he says, quote, "I plead for industrial education and development for the Negro, not because I want to cramp him, but because I want to free him." Close quote. Booker saw that the Southern plantation owners did not want the blacks to become educated, because if they did, they would not want to work for manual labor on the farms. Booker's process of educating the African Americans was to do it in a way of self-discipline and hard work, so that it would not upset the whites. Alabama approved a $2,000 for a normal school for African Americans. They asked Armstrong, who had hired Booker for Hampton, to find a white man to run the school. Armstrong offered the job to Booker. Washington's first classes were held in an old church. Washington spent time traveling and promoting the school and raising money. At the same time he was doing this, he was also reassuring the whites that this would not upset the whites' economic situation. Another quote goes, "Tuskegee Institute's educational program went further than Hampton's Institute in its own promotion of African American social, political, and economic participation in mainstream society. Booker gave a speech known as the Atlanta Compromise. In this speech, he asked that African Americans accept the segregation if it allowed them to get their education, pursue economic security, and have a fair justice system. Booker was trying to find a bridge between the two races at this time so that all could move forward in slow steps. Booker wanted to avoid any contention if he could, for the good of everyone. Booker T. Washington, with the assistance of a ghostwriter, wrote 5 books that dealt with his life and his thoughts on what was going on around him. Booker believed that hard work, self-discipline, and the acknowledgement of where others stood on topics was the best way to move forward in life. Now, Booker T. Washington has influenced me because he was born in slavery, but that did not keep him down. He realized that with hard work and perseverance, he could make a difference in his life and those around him. He realized that he might not be able to change all people's view, but he could work with what he had, and a positive outcome could happen. I hope that as a teacher, I can teach and excite my students about hard work and the positives that do come from hard work. We might be able to change those around us, but we can work on ourselves, and that can affect and change those around us. Thank you for listening today.